Welcome to the Learning Disabilities Association of Iowa's final webinar on executive function. It is that brain's air traffic control system, the CEO that controls what you do. And as Jess said last week, it is a plate that supports all you do. It's not just an add-on for your teaching and parenting abilities. We started out with routines, and Shirley talked to us, Amy talked to us about the importance of routines and how to set them up. And then Shirley went into working memory for us and talked about how to develop working memory and accommodations for working memory. And Jess did organization last week for us and looked at practical ideas on how to organize our students and our children. And I'm Kim Miller. I'm going to deliver the last webinar on goal setting, self-talk, and self-monitoring. Before we start, though, I need to give you a few housekeeping things. That throughout our time, you can put some questions and answers in the link below. We had some people that gave us questions ahead of time, which I'll address also throughout the presentation. In the chat, Shirley will be putting in the handout that you can access to be able to take notes on. That was also sent to you last night as well. Shirley will also send that in the chat throughout the time in case you missed the link for the handout. There is closed caption if you choose to turn that on as one of your controls. At the end of the webinar, you'll get a survey by email, and you can fill out the survey. It really helps us to know how to cater to your needs better. It also be a place where you can decide if you want to get a certificate of attendance, and Kathy, our director, will send that to you. It also will show the YouTube where you can access the video on YouTube, and the handouts will also be on our website. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have been at UNI for 40 years. I just retired last December, first year of retirement. I did teach kids for 30 years. I was at Exira, Iowa, and in a small rural town by Atlantic, and I also taught at Price Laboratory School for 27 years. So UNI's Price Laboratory School, which closed in 2012. So a little shout out to any of my students that I would have had, either elementary students or college students or professionals throughout that time. I supervised level 1 and level 2 field experiences. So I've been in all the schools in our area and also taught in the special education department, special education methods courses. And I've been on the Iowa Learning Disabilities Board for 25 years. I did want to share with you some checklists that you could use, just overall screening devices or assessment tools for you. The first one is from Smart But Scattered Kids. I know that someone put down something about Smart But Scattered. I think it was April, if you're out there, April. It's a great website that does talk about executive function, and they have this checklist that will give you a rating system. Also on the Attitude magazine, which is a great website also, deals with attention issues. They have a checklist that you can go to right here also to screen students or have them screen themselves to see where they're at in executive skills. Goal setting, wow, super important. I thought it fit in great with everything that we've been talking about. So essential for executive function. I really like Audrey Hepburn's talk, her quote that says, "Nothing is impossible. The word says I'm possible." And through goal setting, you can make those things possible. Someone talked about empowerment and empowerment for students. Goal setting is a really effective way to be able to develop empowerment in students and adults. The thing about goal setting is that we all do it. So I always share out with my students my own goals. So the Iowa Reading Conference talked about explicit and systematic instruction for students with dyslexia. Same thing with executive function. It starts with you sharing your own examples with this and why they're important. So the first one is sports. I think sports are a big one that use goal setting. So I do use what I do for sports and what other athletes. I know some people talked about how do I motivate, and I saw it was a high school student. Certainly looking at sports is one of those ways to do it. And most recently for me was a trip to the U.S. Open to see tennis and go to Vermont afterwards. It was my very great and fun time. So goal setting is important for everyone. And I want to give you some time right now in the chat to give us your most recent goal or goal that stood out to you. And Shirley's going to look at those and give us just a few that you've had goal setting in your own life and what's been important for you. Shirley, do you see anybody
I
putting it in?
don't I don't see anything yet. So
Hopefully everyone can find the chat.
so come on guys, let's hear. Okay, we've got a few of them up here now. Exercise daily. That's a great one. Or reading so many books a month.
Mhm. And exercise so important for us in our whole executive functioning and mindfulness to be doing that as well, or it can get slipped by or put on the back burner, and certainly reading books as well. So goal setting in your own life, very important for you to share that with your students.
Here's another one, Kim, on self-care.
Mhm. Very important, even more nowadays as teachers. So goal setting outcomes, it seems like a no-brainer. It seems so obvious why goal setting is important, but I'll show you some that research talks about. Um, get back there. And so first of all, differing abilities. And I really like the term that Amy used, which was unique learners. So we're not talking about slow or remedial. We're trying to do respectful terms for students because we're all smart in different ways. And I like to use the terms below level, at level, or above level. And those change depending upon what you're talking about. So you might have a student that might be above level academically, but below level in social skills or in something else. And so when I refer to students, it depends upon the subject matter and what we're talking about and where they might be at. There are four main outcomes, and you can see some research below that to see those. It does improve performance. I think that goal setting improves performance for students, but also as for adults, making sure that we can accomplish things. It does boost motivation engagement. So someone talked again about that empowerment idea that you are more excited about something, you are more on target with something if you're setting a goal. And then enhancing your self-regulation. So your ability to take control over it, your ability to have some ownership and develop that self-confidence. And it definitely does support diverse learners in their academic, socials, behavioral, many aspects of their life. I always tell this story when I co-taught for most of my years in teaching, and in fourth grade there were two classrooms. One I co-taught in and one I did not. The one I co-taught in, we did goal setting every day. And after school, we can see right here, your name, date, and then goals. Now, some of those might be class goals, but many of these would be personal goals of what you wanted to accomplish. And I had a boy come to me after school, and he was an above level student in most academic subjects and told me that he needed another goal card. And that he said, you know, that goal setting is so easy. He said, I can almost learn on my own. So you have all the students in the class looking at goal setting and seeing that as effective and important. The other classroom I did not go into, and there was a student with a behavior plan in there. I was in the lunchroom one day, and a little girl came up to me and said, why is Travis on that bad card? So the classroom I didn't go into and only used goal setting with one child was seen negatively when really it was effective for all students, not just the students with IEPs. This goal setting form is in the participant folder. Shirley shared with you the participant folder, and in there you see the handout, but this one and other things throughout the time, I'll let you know if they're in that participant folder also. And certainly this goal setting is something that can be used with any age level. I've used it in kindergarten and certainly all the way up to college level students. I know we have a Spanish person out there, Spanish teacher. Right now we have high school, definitely important for high school, and definitely first graders can do goal setting as well. So what are the component parts? What do you have to make sure are included in your goal setting? So first of all are the idea of strengths and limitations. Now, it is the word limitations. It's not what you're bad at. It's looking at the challenges and goals, the limitations that you might have in your life. I did a lot of work with a guidance counselor, and I know we have some guidance counselors out there. And the guidance counselor and I, when we deliver some instruction, talked about this quite a bit, your strengths and limitations. And of course, it starts out with you sharing your strengths and your own limitations and making sure students see you as a person also. And the other interesting thing is that many times students don't know their strengths. Maybe they are seeing so many negative things that they only see themselves in a negative sense. And you might have to point out some of those strengths to them so that they can see those and celebrate those too. Make sure they understand what they're doing and why. So it's not just something done onto them, but how can they understand it better? How can they understand the vocabulary terms? Why is it important to do? All of that for explicit instruction. And then making sure that those goals are specific and challenging at the right level. So you want that optimal level. You don't want the goals that are too difficult, that are be overwhelming to accomplish, or the goals that are too easy that you wouldn't have to do anything to accomplish and then don't feel the pride in your work because they were so easy to do. And making sure you're giving the students as much ownership as possible. So again, it's not something done onto them, but they're a part of you in the learning process. And make sure those goals are in a visible place and make sure they're part of the routine. I'm going to show you some examples of these, but you want to make sure that it's not just oral. It's something that they can see and be able to reflect on. So making sure to set aside a time to check in or conference with the students on a regular basis so that you can check on the progress, see how well it's going, so that you can provide support and scaffolds to help them reach that goal. You're not just waiting till the end when it's too late to be able to accomplish that goal. And certainly have opportunities for celebration. So my trip to New York was my celebration, even though that was part of my goal, making sure that we are seeing things in a fun sense too. I know as a teacher, I looked at after my 20th year, my 30th year as teaching was what had I learned and where do I want to go to? And it certainly came down to some ideas of fun and celebration too. And I'll show you some of those at the end that I think are real practical things other than just giving out a treat. But anyway, I came to the idea that I also had to be having fun and they need to be having fun too. And there's just a reference for you too about goal setting for students. So I think you might be getting ready for conferences. I know that we're having conferences in Cedar Falls right now going on. And the idea of student-led conferences and the ability for students to look and see what are their strengths in their goal areas. So my students would do this before conferences. And then they would lead their own conference to be able to share with their family. I think they're the most important person to be there. It is important, I think, that you fill in all of these things for strengths. This is in the participant folder. You could make this as many, blanks as you want to, but I think it's important that your strengths do outnumber your goal areas. And again, the students might need some help in deciding what those strengths are because maybe again, they see too many of their weaknesses. So making sure they can see their progress. So this is an IEP portfolio. I certainly saw that in the general education classroom, they would have portfolios to keep documents to highlight student work. This is the student's IEP written for them to be able to read. Felt this was really essential as a special education teacher to write those goals so that student could understand them and then they could be able to keep their work in this portfolio so that IEP becomes a living document. It's not something just in a file cabinet or on a computer. It's a living document that's shared with classroom teachers, the parents, and that's what is the central focus to work on with the students. And they know why they're with you and what they're working on. So this is an older student. You can see the goals written in a little bit different way, but certainly a section here for personal goals. So you can have those personal goals for students, and those personal goals could be athletics. It could be something with music or drama, some creative sense, but it also could be making friends. So you want to make sure that ownership is there for that personal goal for the students, not just ones that are given to them. This is a really cool site from Understood. Understood is a great website. They have an electronic, actually album for your strengths. Open this one up. I took you right to this page. If you go to their main page, they have many other resources for parents, teachers, and also students or people that might have a learning difference. I'm going to this page that's going to look at strengths and challenges, and it forms an album in many different areas. So I'll show you some of that they have. So one is after school activities. You don't want to forget that because students that we may work with that might have difficulties might have something that really they can excel in after school. And we have to see that as a strength, whether that's sports or music or 4-H or Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, really important to look at after school activities where they can actually be seen as a leader. What are some character traits in another album you can have? What are your language skills? So if you're looking at a student maybe with dyslexia, what would be some strengths and some challenges in those areas? Math, in learning disabilities, they call it dyscalculia. And we have things on our website, also share things on Facebook with that. Reading and writing. And I don't want to forget about social skills also, that we want to make sure our students are looking at their strengths in that and their challenges and study skills also. So it's a great electronic album you can do for strengths and challenges. And I don't want to forget this one right here called Through My Eyes. They actually have students talking about their differences. This happens to be a student with attention issues. And you can hear through his eyes what it's like. They have simulation activities as well. This is a student with student with dyslexia in here too. And I think they have three, or maybe more than that, different students talking about their lives. So you can see different ages as well, but a great tool. So when you talk about empowerment, and someone asked about, I'm so frustrated with my student, I can't get them to buy into this. This one way to have them buy into it is to watch a video of a peer, have them talk about it, and know that they're not alone, and see it from the side of a peer as well. So understood.org, great site to go to. So planning for goal setting, I can't miss this. So goal setting is more than just auditory and oral. It's not just a wish or a hope. It's got to have some type of an action plan and accountability system in it as well. So this happens to be my basement. It's been a goal of mine for quite a while is to clean my basement. And since retirement, I've been working on that. I love this Benjamin Franklin quote, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And I had to make sure that I did something in this that could give me an accountability system written out. So it was something more than just a goal, but an action plan of how I could get there. And I'm not going to tell you if this is the final result or this is the pre picture, but I'll throw in some mice too that help me get out of that as well. That leads to the idea of SMART goals. Certainly look at that for IEP goals, making sure that they are SMART. And you can do that with students as well. So these are two examples of students writing some SMART goals. So making sure that they are specific so that they have some parameters, but not too difficult that the child can't understand them either. So we want to make sure they are specific, and you can see could be something with reading right here as well. I know that someone talked about math facts before in one of the questions. Your SMART goal could be around math facts as well. You could have your own personal goal for math facts. I know that Shirley talked about working memory might get in the way of math facts, and it certainly does. But if you're motivated and you have the hard work and effort, you can do that, and that could be a very specific goal with facts. Needs to be measurable. So we need to know if you accomplished it or didn't accomplish it. It could be in the form of a table. I'll show you some of those later on, some self-rating things, but measurable. So I know if I'm reaching that mark or not. Is it achievable? Is this goal too difficult? Is it too easy? How can I get that, optimal level that would be the right goal for me? And is it relevant? Is it relevant to my life? Am I buying into it? Do I believe in it? Do I think it's important? And will it make a difference? And last of all is time bound. So do I have to break this into smaller steps? How long do I have to accomplish this goal? and making sure that's a right fit too, because there is an art to how long a goal can last, that a student could sustain their attention towards it, actually reach it, and how we're going to break that down into parts, but certainly looking at the time-bound part of it as well. Don't want to forget about parents. So this is actually from Penny Reed. She has an article she wrote, Let's Put the Planning Back in Individual Education Programs. It is in your participant folder as well. Very short article. I would send that to my parents to read so that they can be more an active part of the IEP meeting. And that active part of the IEP meeting has these 6 quadrants right here. Penny has one, but I added to it so that it was a little more all-encompassing. So certainly at your IEP meeting, you start with strengths, interests, and preferences. This is important that parents come with ideas what their child's good at. And the child does this too in the IEP, looks at their strengths, interests, and preferences. And we build on those. We build on what you're really good at. And then we've got the long-term or general goals. So we want parents, teachers, support professionals, the child thinking about long-term goals. These may be more big picture goals. So not necessarily I'm going to quantify this goal. And I think about the story of a first grade parent I had with a son with autistic characteristics. And when I talked about the long-term goal, and he'd been thinking about this because he got this ahead of time from the meeting, he said, I just would like my son to be able to talk to me when he got home and tell me how his day went. And I took that to heart. That wasn't a goal that I could necessarily write out and make sure it was quantifiable, but it was something very, very important. And we included that in the child's educational plan as well. Next is that present level performance. What can the student do now? It doesn't have to just be academics. A parent could come in saying they can tie their shoes. They can get ready in the morning. All of those things that the child can do now for a baseline. And then we get into the IEP goal. Okay, what do we want to accomplish in 1 year? How can we make that a SMART type of goal? And what accommodations and supports would be important for that child, and concerns, questions, and resources also. So like Jess talked about last time, this could be a whole webinar just on this, but I did not want to forget about parent goal setting for their child and how they can be more actively involved in the IEP meeting. That leads us on then to self-talk. So after goal setting, and you've got that SMART goal, thinking, how am I going to accomplish this? It also goes into self-talk and how I'm going to be sure that I'm saying things that will help me. And I know someone asked about how to respond when you are so frustrated with your child. And I didn't, Amber, I don't know if you're out there, but you asked about this. I don't know for sure if this is what you meant, if you were very frustrated with the child, or you're frustrated with somebody else, or even frustrated with your own self. And so as a parent or a teacher, it also involves your self-talk. So words we say to ourselves, that internal dialogue, you may, I'm thinking I was talking to myself in the car. You may say it out loud. You may get mad at yourself and say some things to yourself and help yourself snap out of it, what you might be saying. But positive self-talk does build confidence, and it helps you get through challenges, and helps you build that emotional regulation and self-confidence. Negative self-talk decreases confidence and ability to deal with challenges. We are going to all have negative self-talk. We just want to make sure it's not happening and overtaking our thinking, that we can still be in control of our own thinking. One article talked about the boss thought, that bossy one that might be negative. So we have to make sure that we have this mantra of things we can say, these I can statements that would be some positive things or ways to reframe what we're thinking with some type of visual aid and a healthier self-image. Now, someone talked already about a health workout plan. Certainly, sports is a big one that you use self-talk in as well. But you have to be aware of that again, for that explicit instruction. What is positive self-talk and what is negative self-talk? And how can I catch myself when I'm doing it? Um, and I always use the example, this is me again playing softball. And this is true. When I started out saying, don't hit me the ball, I'm going to miss it. Don't hit me the ball. Don't hit me the ball. I'm not going to get it. And all that negative self-talk became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So of course you miss the ball, you get nervous. And so I had to turn that around. I was aware of that negative self-talk and had to move to hit me the ball. I'm ready. I can get this. and move to positive self-talk and see myself actually making the play. But it's not just about being optimistic. It's not just saying, "Oh, my goal is to win this game," and that's the only thing there is. It has to be some resilience too. When you're faced with that challenge, what are you going to do about that? So here we go again from the chat, Shirley. Hopefully we get some more than 3 that we had last time. So in the chat to put down a positive self-talk or some negative self-talk that you've used yourself. Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds while you're doing it in the chat. I'm going to show you some examples. Shirley, do you want to say anything to us first?
No, I'm just watching and waiting for all these responses to come in.
Okay. Well, I'm going to show you some examples. So you can look at finishing your work, and I can finish this, give you some self-talk with that. I'll try my best. I'll do better next time. So this is, I'm thinking about eating. Okay, so having some sugar you didn't want to have, um, and that you want to make sure that you can say, hey, I can do better next time. I can do tough things, and challenges help me grow. And I'm in charge of my choices. So Shirley, what do we have? What do we see for some
Oh,
self?
we've got a few that just came in. One was, I've got this. Another one was, take little bits at a time. I can do this work successfully. Here's another one, take it one step at a time.
Mhm. All great self-talk. And these speech bubbles you can find at Dollar Tree that are fun. You can cut out. Students can write on those and put it on their desk, but they have to be able to then be aware of that self-talk and then be able to change it. So I'm going to have Garrett share with you in just a second his self-talk. He used to have a lot of negative self-talk, and he would say and get very frustrated. He would get angry and frustrated. So he's reading. He had reading issues, and he'd come across a word he didn't know and get very upset. So we had to replace that negative self-talk with some positive self-talk because you can't take something away and not replace it with something else. So he did get the speech bubble, and he is going to talk to you about his strategy, his reading strategy, and some of his goal setting as well.
Um, well, this is sounding out snake, what you can sound out. This is Chunk the skunk.
What is chunk the cells? I just don't want you getting over 3. Now show us your self-talk strategy right there. Hold that one up and talk about that.
This thing?
No, your bubble, your self-talk bubble.
I can try a strategy.
And now how has that helped?
Well, it tells you, you could try, like if you're frustrated in a moment, you're like, just tell me the word. You could think about these strategies and see if you can use one of these strategies. Try all of these, even Flippy the dolphin.
Right. Now, I know you went past your goal. Your goal for this year was level 16, actually by next September, and you're actually to level 17. And I know you had a goal for the summer. What was your goal for the summer you were talking about?
I'm trying to, so I'm on level 16, but I'm trying to get on level 17 in a month, and yeah.
Actually, you're already past level 17, Garrett. You just did level 17 at 95%, so you're ready for level 18?
And then I want to get to level 19, and I think I could be at level 20 by the beginning of 3rd grade.
And goal setting is a big part of that. Goal setting really helps a lot to help you accomplish
you can't make
those.
it go too high.
Exactly. What would happen if you make it too high?
Well, then you might not get it there. And it's your decision, because if you want to get, it can be your decision, but you can make it a little high. But it is your decision, because if you set a goal and you get frustrated since you didn't get to the goal, it's no one's fault, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Well, this
So hopefully you saw Garrett's self-talk that he was using in his empowerment, how he was taking control of his own frustration and anger, and that he did have ownership for it. So it was not just me telling him what to do, but him being a part of it. You can also see some other positive self-talk. This is another student's that we wrote out and had it on her desk and used that as a mantra for her as well. So I gave you some examples. This is from some ideas from this are from our worst enemy, silencing negative self-talk. But you can see how you can take some negative self-talk and turn it around. Now, this is one from Garrett. I can't do this. I give up. And then instead you can say, I can use the strategies I've learned. This is too hard. Well, this may take some time and effort. I always make mistakes. Okay, this is often one we see with students that we work with that might have difficulties. I always make mistakes. I shouldn't even start because I'm never going to be good at it. But need to know that everyone makes mistakes and mistakes help me grow. I worked with a fabulous teacher in Waterloo, and he was in fourth grade and he had a student that had significant behavior issues, and they were doing group work, and he went over to the student, he stopped the whole class and he said, I just want to point out this beautiful mistake. And he made this student feel like $1 million for making a mistake. And so as teachers, we need to show our mistakes and show that mistakes help us grow. And last of all, I wanted to show you an example of someone that might compare themselves to someone else, because this happens all the time too. Oh, she's so smart. I just can't, why, I just can't be like her. My oldest son said this about his friend, that he's so smart. I could never be as good as him. But you need to compare yourself to yourself. So how you can make those personal goals, your personal best, and just focusing on yourself and not others. Which leads me then to Carol Dweck's work, Your Brain is a Muscle, and the idea of growth mindset, that you are not born smart. You make yourself smart. You have all the capabilities of growing and learning, and it's up to you to make that happen. One of my students actually did this little design. We did some self-monitoring with growth mindset, a growing mind versus a fixed mind right here. And you could tally and catch yourself when you were saying things or thinking things or doing things. That would be a growing mind versus a fixed mind. The idea that ability based versus effort based. So that you're not born with all those abilities that just make you smart, that you have to develop those. And I think also of one of my son, who is an engineer now, but things came very easily for him in school. And he just thought that learning just was supposed to come effortlessly. And I think many times the learning that he had might have been too easy. He already knew it. But he came in against a math problem one time and just shut down and said, I can't do this. I'm dumb. I'm like, no, you're going to have some hard work and effort to be able to get this. But so important for above level students also to feel that right fit goal, that it's going to have to take some effort to get this. It's not just a given that's going to come easily for me. So in life, whether it's a family, children, you have to know that things aren't just going to come easy. It's going to have to be some hard work and effort, and that you have control over. I gave you some Carol Dweck's actual TED video from YouTube. So back to the idea of the person that said, how do I get my students to buy into this? For older students, it is watching some videos with them and talking about that as well. And then again, using my own life. So challenges help me grow. So this is my trip I was telling you about, to New York and Vermont. I was going to take the train. My husband and I were going to take the train to Albany and pick up a car. Well, unfortunately, it was Labor Day weekend and I had not made a train reservation. And so they were sold out. And we had no way at the time to get to Albany. And I was anxiety level high, self-talk negative. And I had to get myself into a mantra of challenges help me grow. It'll be fine. You can work on this. You are a capable person. And it did take some hard work and effort. But I ended up we got on a bus, and the bus ride was fine too. So challenges do help you grow, all of us. Okay, that leads me then into self-monitoring. So self-monitoring or self-rating. This is another great site for self-monitoring. The Iris Center out of Vanderbilt looks at how to self-monitor and self-rate, gives some component parts. So first of all, self-monitoring or self-rating does engage students. It gets them on task, actively learning. It does increase their self-awareness, confidence, and self-control. That whole idea that I can see my strengths, I can see how I'm progressing, I can feel good about that. And it provides feedback to students. So it doesn't have to just be your parent or your teacher giving the feedback, but that graph, that self-rating that you're doing yourself is giving you that feedback and instant feedback. And then you get to see your improvement over time. This might need to have some help with it because they might not see growth. They need to see that growth to keep going, but sometimes that growth isn't large enough and they might start in a negative cycle of negative self-talk. And you as the teacher or parent need to point out some growth and how they're working at it, even though they might not be exactly at their goal yet, what their growth is. And then always look at that competition with yourself. How can you be able to work again, working on your own goal in the competition with yourself? So here's some examples. This first one on the left, the thing is with active learning and being on task, it's difficult to know if you are actually thinking about what you're talking about. So even you right now, or a sermon at church, how are you doing and staying on task and thinking about what the subject is that you're with? So I designed this for the students that I would stop periodically throughout the class period and say, rate yourself right now. Are you thinking about what we're talking about? Are you on task? And they can put a mark there on their on task or the off task. And it's that reminder to them to get back on task. It's that awareness, raise that level of awareness. Now, there's no judgment on this. If a student puts, I'm on task, but they're not, maybe they're not self-aware enough that they can't distinguish between on task and off task. Or they don't want to necessarily let everybody, they don't want to admit that. And that's fine, but internally in their head, when you say that and you rate yourself, you have to then say, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be on task. And that's what research says, that it will just be that reminder that they need. Again, not you, being negative with them or making judgment. They are making that judgment themselves. This is another one, by the way, these are in the participant folder also. This one is one, if you do want to see a comparison rating a little while later, a student-teacher rating. So the student rates themselves, and you can change these up, whatever you want these to be. And then the teacher rates you, and you see if it's a match. Now, you're looking at the whole idea of a match. So if they did do low and they rate themselves low, and you rated them low, that's great. Then they were more self-aware, their ability to talk about that and show that, and that's a match. This is a younger version for younger students, so you can see the thumbs up, the thumbs down, or the thumbs in the middle if you want to see about how they're doing for participating or focusing also. I love this one. This is one of my college students did with a classroom. This actually was fourth grade, but you could use this with many other grade levels. And she really wanted her students to work on the goal of working effectively as a team. And what she saw is that when they did group work, one person dominated and did all the work. A, because they were bossy, or B, because they could, or C, because nobody else would help. And so we have those students then that don't help because someone else is taking control over it, or they think they can have been able to slide by in the past. So here are the component parts we went through. The most important thing is when they self-rated, it was throughout the lesson. It was not just at the very end. So I'm thinking again about the Spanish teacher or a high school teacher. Certainly the same thing, that you can stop and rate throughout the time. Because if you wait till the end, they could have been on task, off task, on task, off task. But at this moment, and it is worth the 1 minute it takes for them to rate themselves. This is the teacher's form. The teacher can go and also rate as she or he is going around to see how the student is doing also. And this is in your participant folder as well. This is another one where this is an above level student. He was actually he was accelerated a grade, but he had high academic skills but below level social skills, and had a very difficult time working in group. And so they again, this my college student, had them rate themselves when they were done. He actually gave himself an 8.5, but you can see his reflection about what he did as a partner and how he tried to make that more fair. And you see the overall students here that I rated. Generally speaking, you want to have 80% or higher. We're not looking at perfection. And you don't know if these students down here were too hard on themselves or not, but it is the idea of self-rating and taking control of that. This one is from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. We were working on elaborated conversations and in a literature group. And we wanted the students to write their own questions. And we taught what thick questions were, so that questions that might facilitate a conversation or discussion, and not just write their questions, questions that would be answered with yes or no. And the students came to the literature circle with their questions, and then they monitored here how they did in answering questions throughout that time period. Very successful to getting more students to be able to answer and talk and not just sit passively in a group member. I did a little research with this and my students, and I had them record when they asked and answered questions in class. I wanted them to become more engaged, and I had them tally when they were doing that. Whether they got called in or not, they tallied. And I thought, oh, I wonder if it's going to be like Shirley said in hers, when the teacher calls on you, you forget what you were going to say. But that wasn't the case at all. When they started tallying their asking and answering questions, they were more engaged in the conversation. They were on task, they were listening, and they had very important things to say in the conversation. Another thing you can do with this is everybody gets so many chips to start out with in the group. So let's just say it's 3. Everybody gets 3 chips. When you talk, you push a chip into the middle. And when your chips are gone, you're done talking. So that person that dominates the conversation, when their chips are gone, they're done talking. The person that doesn't talk a lot then has the freedom to share and the safety to share their ideas next. And then when everyone has shared, you start over and everyone can take their 3 chips back. This is something I used in kindergarten, first grade, but I used it with middle school as well, and I call it the laws of learning. So I did research on what active learning was, because you can't just say be on task, focus. What does that really mean? Even for parents, what does that mean? Can you quantify it explain it to me, define it for me? And this is my definition that I came up with. So it is about you looking at who's speaking. Or if you're supposed to be looking at a book, where your focus is supposed to be at. And you can tally looking very easy. Are you looking at where you're supposed to be right now? Mark down a point. Asking and answering questions, also another easy one to tally. Getting your work done. Now, getting your work done often has to do with setting goals. So we might go down to look at setting goals and then come back to check that off with your work done. But I was just looking at Penn Holderness. He is a singer, funny guy. He and his wife Kim do podcasts, and he has a new book out on ADHD. But he just was talking about this idea of work done and this checklist idea that Jess talked about last week and how important it is. But I like to use the Mr. Potato Head rules with the younger students. So this to me is what on-task behavior is. So you're listening, so you can put those ears in. And I have kids come up and put the ears in. But you know what? I don't know if you're listening or not. Only you know if you're listening or not. I do know what you say, so I've got the mouth. So what you say and talking appropriately, I can see if it's on target. I can see if you're playing with things, but I have to say with your hands right here, students can play with things and still pay attention. You have to know your student and know them well if they can do that or not. Staying in your seat. Now, I had one student that was constantly getting up and moving around, and some students do need to get up and move around, might have a standing desk. But if it's getting in the way of their learning, you might have to self-monitor how many times you're getting up and moving around, which is an easy one to self-monitor too. Looking right again with eyes and your brain. Are you thinking about what we're supposed to be talking about? And the students, the first grade students, added this one on. Don't be nosy. And then with the glasses, uh, respect differences is what they said for that one. And then I was showing the first graders how to tally with this. And again, you have to stop throughout the lesson and remind them about tallying. So you actually direct them at the beginning, but then later on, they can just do it on their own if they find themselves looking. And we do talk about it's not about how many tallies you have. It's not about you trying to see if you have more than the person next to you and go into depth with that as well. But I was telling the first graders about it and marking it, and the one child raised his hand and said, "You mean tally?" I'm like, "Yeah, tally. You can put some tallies there." And I actually have in the participant folder some lesson plans on the laws of learning. So if you want to see some more systematic, explicit instruction for that, that is in the participant folder as well. So got to talk a little bit about celebrations. So I think celebrations are really important, but I like celebrations to be related to what you're doing. So this one, a group of my students, this is third grade actually, they were learning the phases of the moon. And both of the students had reading and writing issues. And we worked on learning the phases of the moon through puppets. And they loved puppets. So I'm looking at their strengths, looking at their interests, and how can I use that. And the boy on the left actually made his own puppet. That's Apollo 13 right there. And then we actually did the puppet show for younger students so that you can share your learning with somebody else, and that the actual celebration is the puppet show that makes learning fun. Another idea for celebration is trying to do some type of peer mentorship. So I had two students, you already saw Garrett, had an older student, and I wanted to match them up. They both had behavior issues, but a little bit different. She had issues with anxiety, not wanting to come to school, not wanting to get out of the car, not wanting to stay in school, and actually leaving school as well. Garrett had more difficulties with frustration, anger management, and I hooked them up together with a guidance counselor doing a small group. And I know that was some of the questions. What are some ideas for a small group that I can do twice a week? Hopefully the ideas I've given you today would be something that you could do in small group or large group or individual work as well. Both of the students really liked cooking. So their celebration, if they met their goals, were be able to cook. And they got to cook for their class. So their class got to be able to be the recipients. Now I have to say my cooking's not very good, so they actually uh, were better than I was in the cooking area. But the kids loved it, and I have to say their class knows that they have some issues that they're working on. So that's not a secret. That wasn't a secret that Garrett had frustration issues, or it wasn't a secret, that Sandra was having problems getting into class. And so they could be a part of that, and they could be a part of the celebration as well. Um, Garrett really liked pets, animals as well. And so I looked at the idea of the Humane Society so that we could do and give back. So I'm always looking at, could a celebration be giving back to somebody and finding that joy and satisfaction of helping others. And so we took this monthly goal, which was a little more ambitious, and we tried to break it down in a timely manner so that each week he would earn cat treats, dog treats to be able to take with him to the Humane Society at the end of the month. So I could break that down into more manageable parts that he could be a part of. So celebrations are very important. So looking today at goal setting and the importance of goal setting and how to make that planful, how we can make that into a SMART goal with student ownership, student empowerment, and sharing our own examples. Moving to self-talk and how important that is now to take that goal setting another step further into self-talk. So looking at positive and negative self-talk and making sure our students are aware of that and can change it or use it. And last of all, looking at self-monitoring or self-rating, the importance of you seeing your growth, you being responsible for it, you getting that immediate feedback from doing that rating. And finally, looking at that celebration and how you can celebrate your growth. Which made me think too, someone was talking about this the other day about how easy it is in self-talk as a teacher and a parent to say negative self-talk. And so what I would do is put 5 paper clips in my left pocket. And I do know that students need 5 to 1 positives, but it's easy to get in this negative rut of saying negative things. So I actually had to look for positive things. And when I said a positive thing to the child, I would then take that paper clip and put it in my other pocket. Now my goal was to get all 5 of those paper clips put in my other pocket. Now, if I said something negative, which you do have to sometimes have to do redirection, I'm not saying that. I would move that paperclip back, but it is important to be able to see the positive side in our students and celebrate their growth. I wanted to make sure that you had my email address as well. If you have any other questions to go along with the talk today and contact information, I still have my UNI email. Before we get to questions, I did want to look at this one right here so that I don't forget to show the sites. We have our website, the LDA website, which has many resources, which where you'll find the handouts on. Our YouTube channel has the videos from our 4 webinars. Shirley does our Facebook, very active Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter. And then you see our email. That's what you were getting from Kathy Specketer, our director. And we certainly would love to have you join the Learning Disabilities Association. When you do join, you would be joining LDA America and also our state organization. In this day and age, with cuts, 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 really worried right now what's going to happen to our students' rights with things being closed down and what we can do to be advocates and help. So we do greatly appreciate you being here. And you can see the yearly membership. You can click right on that to get to that, or student membership. So if you have any college students, to get active right now because your career does start right now when you're starting to work with students. We'd love to have you. Shirley, I'm opening up to questions. Otherwise, I'll come back to some other ones I maybe had from before. Did we see any questions in the Q&A?
We don't have any new questions, Kim, but someone shared a little self-talk that you could have used on your trip when you missed the train. And the tip was, this is hard and I can do hard things.
Definitely a good one. I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, and uh, I definitely learned from that experience. So.
We don't have any new questions, but a couple questions that came in ahead of time. And I think you addressed most of these, but maybe just a quick review. First one was, how can goal setting be leveraged to motivate student growth, both behaviorally and academically?
Mhm. So certainly that goal setting is going to help them take control and ownership so that then once you take that control and ownership, build your self-confidence, you're going to be more actively involved in what you're doing. And then will give the teacher and parent more leverage to help mold that, help scaffold that, and help support that also. And I think that's true for any age level, that goal setting to make sure that you're taking control. It's not just something done onto you.
Another question was, what are some strategies to improve self-talk?
Well, that first of all is that awareness that I went through, that you have to be aware of what those are. You have to be able to see that from your teacher, your parent, your mentor, and talking about that. You have to be able to record that in some type of a way. So you saw my speech bubbles I showed you, talked about helping develop those. You heard Garrett talk about his self-talk, and then also how you could take that negative self-talk and turn it into positive self-talk also. And that question we had about the person that was so frustrated, as a parent and teacher, you also need to use self-talk. And you need to be able to share that with your child or your student, how you're using that.
The last question I have is, how can we help students to be more empowered?
I think it's all three things I talked about today. So it starts with goal setting, it moves to self-talk, and it ends up with self-rating and self, monitoring. And hopefully you get to the point where Garrett was. And Garrett was a second grader. So that didn't happen overnight for him to be able to talk about his goal setting and his self-talk. That was over months and months of us working together. And he knew that I was his support system, the person that was going to look for the positive and help him grow.
Okay, I'm just looking. I don't see any additional questions. Do you have any final comments, Kim?
I want to say thank you, everybody, for helping support the Learning Disabilities Association of Iowa. And hopefully these webinars were helpful to you and that you can use those with your colleagues and your other friends. Have a great rest of the month. Happy Halloween. Bye.